A warning from the Virgin Mary. Today's divine revelation. A prophecy from Saint Michael for Luz de Maria. Do you feel it? That shiver running down your spine right now? Isn't it a coincidence that you're here, right now, as your hands shake holding this device? Something extraordinary is happening in the skies. The Blessed Virgin, Mother of all humanity, has just revealed, through Luz de Maria, a prophecy that will change everything you believe about the coming months. Listen carefully. Saint Michael the Archangel, the warrior of God, has come down with a flaming sword and words that cut like blades through the darkness of these times. What you are about to discover is not just a message. It is a wake-up call that resounds from the throne of the Most High directly to your heart. And if you choose to ignore it, if you decide that this is not for you, you will be making the biggest mistake of your spiritual life. The truth is raw, it is hard, it is undeniable. We are living in the days that the ancient prophets envisioned in their most terrifying visions, but also the days of greatest hope for those who know how to listen. Luz de Maria, chosen by heaven itself as an instrument of this revelation, received words that will make her inner world collapse and rebuild itself completely. Have you noticed how everything around you is changing rapidly? How are people more aggressive, more empty, more desperate? As nature screams through multiplying catastrophes, this is no coincidence. It is exactly what Saint Michael announced would happen. And now, through this extraordinary seer, the complete map of what is to come has come to us. Prepare your heart, because what you will discover in the next words is not theory, it is not human interpretation. It is the voice of the most powerful archangel in the heavenly army, echoing through a simple woman, chosen to be the spokesperson for the divine in these final times. Your soul already knows this. That's why you're here. That's why your hands are shaking. That's why your heart beats faster. Luz de Maria was in deep prayer when it happened. It was an ordinary night, one of those in which the world seems to sleep in false peace, when suddenly all reality shattered before her. A golden light, more intense than 1,000 suns, but which did not hurt the eyes, took over the environment, and then he appeared. Saint Michael the Archangel, with his shining armor and drawn sword, did not come to bring sweet words, he came as a general announcing the final battle. His first words chilled Maria's blood of light. Beloved daughter, the time of mercy is coming to an end. Divine justice can no longer be contained. Humanity forced the hand of the Eternal Father. Can you feel the weight of these words? Can you understand what it means when the commander of the heavenly armies himself says that God's patience is running out? It's not a threat, it's a fact. It is the harsh reality of a humanity that has chosen the path of rebellion against its Creator. The Archangel continued with a voice that made the dimensions tremble. The children of the earth transformed the gifts of the Most High into instruments of destruction. They profaned the sacred, they mocked the divine, and now they will reap what they sowed. But to those who hear me now, through this faithful servant of mine, I bring instructions for spiritual survival. Luz de Maria describes that at that moment she felt as if the whole weight of the world fell on her shoulders. She understood that she was not just receiving a message, but a huge responsibility to bring to you, to every soul that still preserves a spark of faith, the guidance to get through the approaching storm. Write these words in your hearts, Saint Michael ordered, because soon there will be no more time for hesitation. The purification has begun, and those who have not prepared themselves spiritually will be like dry leaves carried away by the storm. What Saint Michael revealed about the signs already visible left Luz de Maria in a state of shock for days. Each word confirmed what many restless hearts had already sensed, but no one dared to verbalize. The archangel was categorical. Look around and see the signs that cry out for attention, but that humanity insists on ignoring. First sign, the inversion of values. That which was considered sacred is now publicly profaned, and that which was an abomination is now celebrated in the squares, declared the celestial warrior. You cannot deny that you are seeing this happening. Every day, principles that sustain civilization for millennia are torn apart, as if they were old papers. Second sign, nature in revolt. Saint Michael was specific. The earth cries out in pain through earthquakes, volcanoes, storms and droughts, because the blood of the innocent has contaminated the soil. Every natural disaster you see on the news is not just a meteorological phenomenon, it is creation itself crying out for justice. Third sign, the coldness of hearts. Love has cooled, compassion has died, and every man has become a wolf to his brother, said the archangel with sadness in his powerful voice. You feel it in your own family, at work, on the street. People are harder, more insensitive, more cruel to each other. Fourth sign, spiritual confusion. False prophets multiply like plagues, each one preaching a different gospel. And my people are scattered like sheep without a shepherd, warned Saint Michael. There have never been so many contradictory doctrines circulating, all claiming to possess the absolute truth. Luz de Maria describes that at this moment of revelation, she felt a pressure in her chest so intense that she could barely breathe. The archangel then reassured her. Do not be afraid, daughter. Those who recognize these signs are already awake. For them, the next words will be balm and guidance. The most impactful revelation came when Saint Michael began to speak about what he called the definitive separation. With his sword pointing towards the horizon, the archangel declared, "The time has come when there will be no more middle ground. Every soul will be forced to make a definitive choice between light and darkness." Observe, the celestial warrior continued, as people around you are polarizing, those who were lukewarm in faith are becoming either completely cold or ardently devout. This is no coincidence, it is the fulfillment of prophecy. Because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold, I will vomit you out of my mouth. Luz de Maria then received a terrifying vision. She saw how an invisible line was dividing humanity. On one side, people with luminous faces, radiating peace even in the midst of chaos. On the other, dark faces filled with an inexplicable rage against everything that represents the sacred. Saint Michael explained, this division is not geographical, it is not racial, it is not economic, it is spiritual. It passes through families dividing parents and children, it passes through communities separating neighbors. It is the fulfillment of the Master's words, I have come to bring a sword, not peace. The archangel then gave a warning that chilled the visionary's blood. Those who insist on remaining in spiritual lukewarmness will be swept away by the current of evil. There is no more time for indecision. Each day that passes without a clear choice is a day lost forever. Tell my children, Saint Michael ordered, to examine their hearts with brutal honesty. On which side of the line are they? Your daily actions bring you closer to God or push you away. Your words build you up or tear you down. Your thoughts seek the light or delight in the darkness. This revelation about the definitive separation is not an abstract concept. You are living it now. You can feel this polarization happening in your own life, in your family, in your circle of relationships. When Saint Michael began to reveal the specific events that would mark the coming months, Luz de Maria asked for strength to bear the weight of the visions. The archangel, with compassion, touched her forehead and said, "Courage, daughter, what you are about to see is necessary to prepare the chosen ones." The first vision was about a great worldwide confusion that would begin in the economy. They will see money lose its value like sand in their hands, prophesied the celestial warrior. Financial systems that seemed rock solid will crumble in a matter of days. Those who have placed their trust in material wealth will know despair. But Saint Michael was clear, this is not an isolated punishment, it is a consequence of humanity's choices. When man puts money above God, when greed rules hearts, money itself becomes an instrument of purification. The second vision showed large movements of people. Multitudes will move like human rivers, seeking safety they will not find on earth, the archangel revealed. Borders will be tested, nations will be shaken, and only those who trust in the eternal Father will find true protection. The third vision was about interrupted communications. There will come a time when voices will be silent, when information will be controlled by the children of darkness, warned Saint Michael. So engrave these words on your hearts now, while you can still hear them. Luz de Maria describes that each vision was accompanied by intense physical pain, as if she were experiencing the sufferings shown, but the archangel comforted her. This pain that you feel is shared by the Immaculate Heart of Mary. She suffers for each of her children, who will be lost because they did not heed the warnings. The most touching moment of the revelation came when Saint Michael spoke about the special role of the Virgin Mary in these end times. The mighty archangel, who commands heavenly legions, bowed his head reverently as he pronounced the name of the Mother of God. "Know this all," he declared in a voice that echoed like thunder, "that the Lady of all peoples obtained from the Eternal Father a last opportunity of mercy for humanity. Her Immaculate Heart is the safe refuge in this approaching storm." Luz de Maria then saw the Virgin Mary appearing next to Saint Michael, clothed in light, with tears that looked like diamonds streaming down her compassionate face. The Most Holy Mother spoke with a voice that was simultaneously that of a loving mother and a powerful queen. "My beloved children, how many times have I come to you through apparitions, messages, miracles, trying to awaken your sleeping hearts? How many tears have I shed seeing the perdition you have chosen, but my motherly love never gives up on any of you." The Virgin continued, "That is why I obtained from my Son Jesus this time of extraordinary grace. Those who consecrate themselves to my Immaculate Heart, who pray the Rosary daily, who live in a state of grace, will pass through the coming events, as the Israelites passed through the Red Sea, protected by my maternal mantle." Saint Michael then explained the divine plan. The Lady has prepared a spiritual ark for the times of tribulation. Just as Noah was instructed to build a physical ark, now humanity is instructed to enter the spiritual ark of Mary's heart. But be careful, the archangel warned sternly. This ark is not for spectators, it is for active participants in the spiritual battle. It is not enough to know these truths. We must live them, practice them, witness them even in the face of the persecution that will come. The revelation about the coming persecution was perhaps the most difficult for Mary's light to process. Saint Michael, with his flaming sword, cut through any illusions about easy times ahead. Prepare yourselves, soldiers of Christ, because the final battle between good and evil will intensify in ways you have never seen before. Those who remain faithful to the eternal teachings will be ridiculed, persecuted, marginalized, prophesied the archangel. They will say that you are extremist fanatics, disturbers of the peace, but remember, they also said this about the Master. The heavenly warrior was specific about the forms this persecution would take. First, it will be subtle, loss of opportunities, social exclusion, psychological pressure. Afterwards, there will be explicit laws against faith, prohibitions on worship, and imprisonment of the righteous. Luz de Maria saw visions of believers being forced to hide their faith, of families being separated because of their beliefs, of children being indoctrinated against the teachings of their parents. The pain he felt was so intense that he asked the archangel to stop the visions. But Saint Michael was relentless. No, daughter, it is necessary for you to see the complete reality so that you can prepare yourself adequately. Those who are not deeply rooted in faith will be uprooted like young trees in a storm. The archangel then revealed the spiritual survival strategy. Form small prayer groups, create support networks among the faithful, memorize essential prayers, learn to live your faith discreetly but firmly, and, above all, remain in a state of permanent grace. Why? Saint Michael warned that a time will come when there will be no priests available, when churches will be closed, when every faithful home will have to become a domestic church. Prepare now to be the priests, prophets and kings of your own families. When Saint Michael began to speak about the signs in the sky, Mary's light felt as if all creation was about to be transformed. The archangel pointed his sword upward and declared, "The heavens will proclaim the glory and justice of God in ways that no human eye has ever seen. They will see strange lights dancing in the firmament," prophesied the heavenly warrior. "They are not natural phenomena, as they want you to believe. They are signs from the Almighty, announcing that His kingdom is close to being fully manifested on earth." The archangel described events that would defy all human science. The sun will appear to dance as in Fatima, but on a global scale. The moon will take on colors that will ground hardened hearts. Stars will fall from the sky like ripe figs swayed by the wind. Luz de Maria then saw an extraordinary vision, the sky opening like a scroll being rolled up, revealing the heavenly glory behind the material veil. On that day, Saint Michael explained, even the most skeptical will be forced to recognize that there is a higher reality, governing all things. But the archangel gave a crucial warning. Many, upon seeing these signs, will fall into terror and despair, because their consciences will accuse them of their poorly lived lives. Others will try to explain everything through false scientific theories. Only those who have cultivated intimacy with God will recognize in these signs the manifestations of divine love. Therefore, Saint Michael ordered, "Tell my children not to fear when these things begin to happen. Lift your heads high, for your redemption is near." The signs in the sky do not announce destruction for the righteous, but deliverance. The visionary describes that at this moment she felt a supernatural peace taking over her being, as if Saint Michael was transmitting to her a bit of heavenly serenity to face the turbulent times ahead. The revelation about the transformation of the Church was the most delicate moment of Saint Michael's message. The Archangel, with deep sadness in his powerful voice, said to Luz de Maria, "The spouse of Christ will go through her passion and death before her glorious resurrection. They will see divisions within the Church itself," prophesied the heavenly warrior. "Pastors against pastors, believers against believers, contradictory doctrines being preached from the same pulpit. It will be as if the very body of Christ is being torn apart again." Saint Michael was specific about the signs of this ecclesiastical purification. Those who should protect the faith will dilute it to please the world. Those who should be lights will become darkness. And the simple believers will be confused, not knowing who to trust. Luz de Maria saw visions of empty churches, of closed seminaries, of sacraments being desecrated or abandoned. The pain was so intense that she cried out, "Lord, how can you allow this to happen to your own church?" The Archangel responded with authority, "It is not God who allows it, daughter. It is human choices that force this purification. When the salt loses its flavor, with which it will be salted, it is necessary for the precious metals to pass through the fire to be purified." But then, Saint Michael brought hope. In the midst of this confusion, a small but pure church will emerge, formed by those who remained faithful to the eternal teachings. It will be like the primitive church, persecuted but powerful, hidden but luminous. This remnant church, revealed the Archangel, will be led by shepherds according to the heart of God, who will prefer to die, to attract the truth. And the faithful who remain united with these shepherds will experience miracles, as in apostolic times. The vision ended with Saint Michael showing Luz de Maria a renewed church, more beautiful than ever, emerging from the ashes of tribulation like a spiritual phoenix. When Saint Michael began to reveal the specific instructions for spiritual survival, Luz de Maria felt as if she were receiving a heavenly warfare manual. The Archangel was categorical. "These are the advice. These are direct orders from the high command of heaven for the times that are upon you." The first instruction was about prayer. Establish fixed times of prayer, as the ancient monks did, morning, noon, and night. Stop everything and connect with the divine. It will be this spiritual umbilical cord that will keep you alive in the storm. The second instruction was about fasting. Master your bodies through dietary discipline. 1 day a week, be content with just bread and water. This is not empty penance, but spiritual training for when difficult times demand physical and mental endurance. Saint Michael was specific about spiritual reading. Read the scriptures daily, even if only one chapter. Memorize the Psalms. Always have the lives of the saints at hand. When the internet fails, when books are burned, These words engraved on your heart will be your only library. The fourth instruction was about charity. Practice mercy in small daily acts. A cup of cold water, a word of comfort, a visit to the sick. These gestures will create a network of supernatural protection around you. The archangel then revealed an astonishing instruction. Learn basic practical skills. How to grow food. How to purify water. How to give first aid. Divine providence also works through human wisdom. And above all, concluded Saint Michael, always remain in a state of grace, confess regularly, take communion frequently, live as if each day were your last, because for many it will be. Luz de Maria describes that each instruction seemed to be engraved in fire on her soul, as if Saint Michael were marking these guidelines indelibly. The most mysterious revelation came when Saint Michael spoke of events that transcend normal human comprehension. The archangel looked directly at Luz de Maria and said, "What you are about to hear, few will understand, but it is necessary that it be recorded for those who have ears to hear. The time of the great revelation is near," prophesied the celestial warrior. "When the veils between the dimensions will become thin and those who live in the flesh will clearly see those who live in the spirit, it will be a time of terror for the wicked and of ecstasy for the righteous." Saint Michael described an event that would change the perception of reality. A time will come when every person on earth will simultaneously see the state of his or her own soul, as if a divine mirror were placed before each heart. There will be no hiding, pretending or deceiving. In this moment of universal revelation, the archangel continued, many will fall into despair upon realizing the distance they have created between their souls and God. Others, however, will rejoice upon discovering that their sincere efforts have been accepted by the Almighty. Luz de Maria then saw an extraordinary vision. All of humanity paused simultaneously, as if time had stopped, while each person confronted the absolute truth about their spiritual life. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. After this illumination of consciences, Saint Michael revealed, there will be a period of final choice. Those who have seen their perdition will have a last opportunity for genuine repentance. But it will also be the time when many, even seeing the truth, will reject it out of pride. The archangel concluded this mysterious revelation. Prepare yourselves for this day by praying for the purification of your consciences. Now, the cleaner the mirror of your soul, the less painful this revelation will be, and the greater the joy of seeing yourselves as God sees you. As Saint Michael prepared to close his revelation, Luz de Maria felt a mixture of relief and overwhelming responsibility. The archangel, with his sword now sheathed, addressed his last words directly to each person who would hear this message. Beloved children of the Most High, we have reached the end of this revelation, but not the end of your responsibility. Each word you have heard carries the weight of eternity. Each guidance you have received is a rope thrown by God to save you from the spiritual shipwreck of this time. The celestial warrior was emphatic about the urgency. Do not say tomorrow I will begin to prepare. There is no tomorrow guaranteed for anyone. The events described have already begun, the signs are before your eyes. The time of preparation is now, at this very moment. Saint Michael then made a powerful promise. Those who take these words seriously and live according to the guidance received will not face the coming tribulations alone. I, Michael the Archangel, commander of the heavenly armies, will be with you, beside each one with my flaming sword, protecting the faithful children of the Eternal Father. And when all seems lost, the Archangel continued, when the darkness is so thick that you cannot see your own path, remember, these tribulations are not the end of the story. They are the birth pangs of a new world, of an era of peace that will last 1,000 years. Luz de Maria then saw one last glorious vision. The earth renewed, the heavens new, humanity living in perfect harmony with its Creator. This is the reward of the persevering, explained Saint Michael. Therefore, do not fear the present suffering. Look to the future glory. The Archangel gave his final blessing. Go in peace, but go prepared. Live in joy, but live vigilantly. Love one another, but love God first. And when you reach the end of this earthly journey, you will find the gates of paradise open to receive you as heroes who have won the great battle. With these words, Saint Michael disappeared, leaving Luz de Maria enveloped in a golden light that seemed to emanate from the very throne of God, confirming that every word received was true and urgent. But the revelation did not end there. 3 days after that heavenly encounter, Luz de Maria was awakened by a familiar presence. Saint Michael returned, this time accompanied by a multitude of angels she could not count. The Archangel's face bore an expression of even greater urgency than before. Beloved daughter, he said in a voice that echoed like distant thunder, the Eternal Father has sent me again, because there are crucial aspects that humanity needs to understand before it is too late. What you have experienced was only the first call. Now comes the revelation about the instruments God has prepared for these times. Saint Michael reached out his hand and touched Luz de Maria's forehead. Instantly, she was transported to an extraordinary vision. She saw ordinary people around the world being touched by a special grace, transforming themselves into true spiritual soldiers, without even fully understanding what was happening to them. Observe, said the Archangel, how the Almighty is raising a silent army. They are not famous generals or religious leaders. They are mothers, simple workers, misunderstood young people, forgotten elderly people. God is pouring out upon them extraordinary gifts for the extraordinary times we live in. The visionary saw how these people began to receive supernatural inspirations. Some were moved to stock up on food and water without understanding why. Others felt irresistible urges to learn first aid or survival skills. Many began to dream of future events, receiving specific guidance for their families and communities. This is divine providence in action, explained Saint Michael. When human systems fail, when governments fail to protect their people, when the institutional church is in crisis, these instruments prepared by God will manifest as beacons of hope in the darkness. The Archangel then made a revelation that made Mary's heart of light quicken. And you who are hearing these words now, examine your own heart. Could it be that the strange impulses that you have, the restlessness that disturbs your sleep, the prophetic dreams that so exactly represent this divine preparation happening in your own life? Saint Michael then led Luz de Maria to a revelation that would completely change her understanding of current times. With his sword pointed at the invisible dimensions, the archangel declared, "The time has come to reveal what is really happening behind the scenes of the reality that you perceive. The battle that is unfolding on earth is only the reflection of a much greater war that is happening in the spiritual dimensions," explained the celestial warrior. "Every event you see on the news, every crisis that explodes without apparent explanation, every wave of violence that sweeps across nations, all of this is a direct consequence of strategic moves in this invisible war." Luz de Maria was transported to a terrifying vision. He saw shadowy creatures influencing world leaders, whispering destructive thoughts, planting seeds of discord in seemingly normal meetings. At the same time, I saw angels of light working tirelessly to neutralize these evil influences, protecting righteous people, inspiring wise decisions. What you call conspiracy theories are often just glimpses of this spiritual reality, Saint Michael revealed. There is indeed a conspiracy, but it is not just human. It is a confederation of dark forces working to establish the kingdom of lies on earth. The archangel was specific about how this invisible war affects each person. Every temptation they face, every negative thought that invades their minds, every impulse toward evil they feel, are direct attacks from this war. But also every inspiration for good, every movement of compassion, every act of true love are victories of the forces of light. Therefore, Saint Michael ordered, "Do not underestimate the importance of your daily choices. When you choose good, you are strengthening the army of light. When you give in to evil, you are providing ammunition to the enemy." There are no neutral actions in this war. The revelation ended with a glorious vision. Saint Michael showing how every sincere prayer, every act of charity, every moment of true worship created waves of light that spread throughout the spiritual dimensions, strengthening the celestial ranks in the final battle. The most disturbing revelation came when Saint Michael began to speak about the false signs and wonders that would multiply to deceive even the elect. The archangel, with a serious expression, warned the light of Mary, "Prepare yourselves, because the father of lies will unleash his most sophisticated campaign of deception. You will see false miracles performed publicly," prophesied the heavenly warrior. "Spectacular cures that do not come from God, lying apparitions that contradict the revealed truth, voices from heaven that preach diabolical doctrines. The enemy will even imitate the gifts of the Holy Spirit to confuse those who are deceived." Saint Michael showed Mary specific visions of these deceptions. She saw famous people declaring themselves divine messengers, performing impressive miracles that attracted crowds. Saw advanced technologies being used to simulate supernatural phenomena. He even saw demons disguising themselves as angels of light to convey false prophecies. But how can we distinguish the true from the false? Asked the seer in despair. The archangel answered with authority, "By their fruits you will know them." Everything that truly comes from God produces humility, repentance, genuine conversion, sacrificial love. Everything that comes from the enemy, even when it seems beautiful, produces pride, rebellion, doctrinal confusion, self-love. Saint Michael was categorical about the signs of discernment. Any supernatural manifestation that contradicts the eternal teachings of the Church, that promotes disobedience to the commandments, that exalts man instead of glorifying God, comes from darkness, no matter how impressive it may seem. And special attention, the archangel warned, to those who will promise peace and security through methods that exclude God, will propose purely human solutions to spiritual problems. They will say that technology will save humanity, that science has replaced faith, that man has evolved beyond the need for a creator. The revelation ended with practical instruction. Test all the spirits. Demand that every supernatural manifestation confess that Jesus Christ came in the flesh and remains true God and true man. Demons cannot make this confession without tormenting themselves. In the final revelation, Saint Michael assumed a solemn posture that made the entire atmosphere around Luz de Maria vibrate with heavenly power. The archangel raised his flaming sword and declared, "The time has come to reveal the glorious outcome that awaits those who remain faithful to the end. After all the tribulations, after all the purification, after all the tears and sufferings, the King of Kings will establish his visible kingdom on earth," prophesied the heavenly warrior. It will not just be an era of peace, but a complete transformation of reality as you know it. Saint Michael showed Mary's light visions of a renewed earth, where nature itself had been restored to its original state. She saw animals living in harmony, plants producing extraordinary fruits, crystal clear water flowing from inexhaustible sources. It was as if Eden had returned, but in an even more glorious form. The survivors of the Great Tribulation, the archangel explained, will receive glorified bodies in this life. There will be no more disease, no more premature aging, no more violent death. Humanity will live in perfect communion with its Creator. But Saint Michael gave a final warning. This glory is not automatic for all who survive physically. Only those who maintained purity of heart, who persevered in faith during the darkness, who preferred to die rather than deny the truth, will inherit the promised kingdom. And to those who are listening now and feel their hearts burn with these words, said the archangel, looking directly across the centuries to every soul who would receive this message. Know that it is no coincidence that you are here. You have been called since before the foundation of the world to be witnesses of these unique times in human history. The revelation ended with Saint Michael enveloping Mary in a golden light so intense that she lost consciousness. When he woke up, he had engraved in his heart not only the words he had heard, but also the absolute certainty that each divine promise would be fulfilled exactly as it was revealed. "Go," were the last words of the archangel and his soul. "And tell everyone that time is up, but mercy still remains. Tell them that God loves them infinitely, and that He has prepared unimaginable glories for them. But also say that the door of the ark is closing and only those who decide now will enter." 7 days after the previous revelation, when Luz de Maria thought that all the messages had been delivered, something extraordinary happened during her morning prayer. A soft but powerful presence took over the room, and she recognized it immediately. It was the Virgin Mary herself, Mother of God, coming personally to complete the revelations of Saint Michael. The lady appeared dressed as the Queen of Heaven and Earth with a crown of 12 stars, and a blue cloak that seemed to contain the entire immensity of the universe. Her eyes, filled with tears of compassion, shone with infinite maternal love. When he spoke, his voice was like a heavenly melody that quieted all the storms of the soul. "Dearest daughter," said the Virgin with infinite tenderness, I come to you because there are aspects of the divine plan that only a mother's heart can adequately reveal. Saint Michael brought the warnings and instructions of war. Now I bring the balm of maternal love and the secrets of my immaculate heart. The Most Holy Mother delicately touched Mary's chest of light, and instantly the visionary felt a peace that transcended all human understanding. I want you to understand, continued Mary, that behind all the announced tribulations, behind all the apparent severity of the heavenly warnings, lies the infinite love of a mother who never abandons her children. Just as an earthly mother wakes her children when the house is on fire, I am waking you because your souls are in mortal danger. But watch, said Mary with a smile that illuminated the entire spiritual dimension. How even in the darkest moments that are approaching, my maternal mantle will be covering each of my children who consecrate themselves to my immaculate heart. You will go through tribulations, but you will not be destroyed by them. The Virgin then made a promise that was engraved in fire in the soul of Luz de Maria. Those who pray the Rosary daily, who live the first Saturdays of the month, who practice devotion to my Immaculate Heart, will receive extraordinary graces of protection, discernment and strength. They will be like the Israelites who had the blood of the Lamb on their doors. The destroying angel will pass by without touching them. The most touching revelation came when the Virgin Mary began to speak specifically about families and how they would be the main battlefield in these end times. With tears streaming down her immaculate face, the Mother of God said, "My heart breaks to see how the enemy is attacking the sacred core of human society. Look around you," Mary continued, her voice choked with emotion. "How families are crumbling like sandcastles before the waves, parents who do not know their children, children who despise their parents, spouses who have become strangers to each other. This was not God's will when He created the family." The Virgin showed Mary's light devastating visions, homes where no one spoke anymore, only stared at screens. Children being indoctrinated against their parents' values, marriages being destroyed by outside influences, grandparents being forgotten in solitude. Each image was like a spear piercing Mary's maternal heart. "But I have not come only to lament," the Queen of Heaven said with determination. "I have come to bring the divine strategy, to restore families and make them spiritual fortresses for times of tribulation." The first instruction was revolutionary. Transform your homes into domestic sanctuaries. Every home should have a family altar where you gather daily for prayer. It does not matter if it is only 5 minutes, the important thing is regularity and sincerity. The second instruction struck at the heart of the modern crisis. Establish sacred times of silence in your homes. Times when all technology is turned off and the family truly connects with each other and with God. Silence is where my voice can be heard. And to parents, Mary said with maternal authority, courage to exercise your divine authority over your children. Do not be afraid to be firm when necessary. Better a disciplined child who complains today than a lost child who will make you cry tomorrow. The Virgin concluded this revelation with a powerful promise. Families who follow these guidelines will become oases of peace in the midst of global chaos. They will be like the family of Nazareth, simple on the outside, but radiant with divine presence on the inside. When the Virgin Mary began to speak about the children and young people of these times, her countenance lit up with a special joy, but also with deep maternal concern. "These little souls," she said with infinite tenderness, "were born precisely for these times. It is no coincidence that they are incarnated now." Many parents despair when they see their children so different, so questioning, apparently so rebellious, continued the Most Holy Mother. "But I reveal a secret to you. Many of these children and young people carry in their souls a keen spiritual sensitivity that adults have lost. They feel the changes that are approaching, even without understanding them rationally." Luz de Maria then saw an extraordinary vision. Small children praying spontaneously, young people having prophetic dreams, teenagers being touched by extraordinary mystical graces. It was as if God was pouring out special gifts on the younger generations to prepare them to be spiritual leaders in the future. "Watch," Mary said with maternal pride. How many young people today, despite all the attacks on their purity and faith, maintain a thirst for the absolute that adults have lost. They seek deep truths, authentic experiences, lofty purposes. This thirst is my grace working in their hearts. The Virgin then made a startling revelation about the special role of young people. In the great tribulation that is coming, when many adults succumb to fear and apostasy, it will be these young people, prepared by me, who will keep the flame of faith burning. They will be the new apostles of the dawning age. But Mary also gave specific warnings. Protect these children and young people from the toxic influences of modern culture. Limit their exposure to addictive technologies. Teach them the beauty of nature, the value of silence, the importance of prayer. Their souls are like gardens. What you plant now, you will reap tomorrow. And to the young people themselves who are listening, said the Virgin, looking across time, directly at each young soul who would receive this message, do not despise the calls you feel in your hearts. If you feel attracted to religious life, to mission, to service to the poor, do not hesitate. I myself am calling you to be my instruments in these unique times. The revelation ended with Mary blessing all the children and young people of the world, asking the guardian angels to redouble their protection over them during the turbulent times that were approaching. The Virgin Mary then turned her maternal gaze especially to those who carried leadership responsibilities, parents, educators, priests, rulers, and her expression became simultaneously compassionate and firm. To you who have been called to guide others, she said, I address special words, because upon you rests a greater responsibility. Understand that in these times of widespread confusion, people will desperately search for authentic leaders, revealed the Mother of God. Not leaders who tell them what they want to hear, but leaders who tell them the truth. Even when this truth hurts, you were chosen to be these lights in the darkness. The Virgin was specific about the challenges they would face. They will be criticized for defending eternal values in a society that has changed its moral standards. They will be called retrograde for maintaining principles that modernity has abandoned. But remember, they also called my son a troublemaker. Mary showed visions of faithful leaders being persecuted yet standing firm, of parents facing hostile educational systems to protect their children's education, of priests preaching the whole truth even when it emptied their churches, of righteous rulers making unpopular, but right decisions. To you, fathers of families, said the Virgin with special tenderness, know that raising children in these times is a heroic act. Don't be intimidated by experts who contradict common sense and ancient wisdom. Trust in the authority God has given you and exercise it with love, but also with firmness. To you, faithful educators, continued Mary, courage to plant seeds of truth even in apparently infertile soil. A single true word can change a life forever. Don't give up on any soul, no matter how lost it seems. And to you, shepherds of Christ's flock, the Virgin said with special authority, remember that you will be judged more severely because you have received more. Prefer churches empty of truth to churches filled with lies. The world's applause passes, but God's approval is eternal. The revelation ended with Mary bestowing a special blessing on all the faithful leaders, promising them extraordinary graces of wisdom, courage, and perseverance to fulfill their missions, even in the most adverse circumstances. In the final revelation of this extraordinary series, the Virgin Mary assumed a majestic posture that caused all creation around her to bow in reverence. The time had come for the definitive conclusion of all the heavenly messages received through Luz de Maria. Beloved children of my heart, began the Queen of the universe with a voice that echoed through all dimensions. We have come to the end of these special revelations, but not the end of my maternal presence in your lives. Every word they heard was sealed with my love and confirmed with my authority as Mother of the Church. The Virgin raised her hands, and upon Luz de Maria descended a shower of heavenly roses, each petal carrying a specific grace for all those who received these messages. These are not words to be heard only, Mary declared with divine authority. These are guidelines to be lived, witnessed, transmitted. To each one who has reached the end of these revelations, continued the Most Holy Mother, I make a solemn promise. You were not touched by these words by chance. Your names are written in my immaculate heart from all eternity. You have been chosen to be my soldiers in this final battle between light and darkness. The Virgin then made the most extraordinary revelation of all. Know that when you said yes in your hearts upon hearing these messages, when you decided to take these guidelines seriously, at that very moment, your name was written in the book of life. You have officially become part of my army of consecrated souls. And now, said Mary with a smile that lit up all the heavenly spheres, I will reveal to you the sign by which you will recognize one another in these final times. It will be the supernatural peace that will radiate even in the midst of storms. It will be the inexplicable joy that they will maintain even in tribulations. It will be the unbreakable love they will demonstrate even in the face of persecution. The Mother of God then made her final and most powerful promise. When the darkest days arrive, when it seems that all evil has triumphed, when hopelessness tries to invade your hearts, remember this maternal promise. I will be with you in such a real and tangible way that you will feel my presence like a mother feels the presence of her newborn child. Go now. These were the Virgin's last words echoing through the centuries. Take these messages to every corner of the earth. Bring them to the hearts that thirst for truth, and when you reach the end of your earthly journeys, I myself will welcome you at the gates of eternity, with the crown of victory reserved for those who remained faithful until the end. With these words, the Virgin Mary slowly disappeared, but leaving in the air the soft perfume of heavenly roses, and in Luz de Maria's heart, the absolute certainty that every promise made will be rigorously fulfilled, because the one who promised is faithful and cannot lie.